KCU, 1570 AM and W298BX, 107.5 FM, Winterville, North Carolina.
You've been a constant friend indeed. You were right there, providing for me.
God bless you. You're listening to Awesome Radio Network, Real Talk for Real Men. I am Pastor Trey Forbes, and I have along with me,
Pastor Dan Lawson, United Gospel Outreach Church.
and also have with us.
Elder Nat Farrell, Kingdom of Heaven Ministries.
All right. Amen. We got Real Talk for some men today on this radio network. How are you doing out there in Radio Land? Hopefully things are going well with you, and we are excited to be here with y'all on today. Today we're just going to talk, as always, give some real talk for real men. So how your Knicks doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Cool. You gonna just leave it at that? Y'all won.
We split. We
okay.
split in New York, and we'll come back
Okay.
and we'll keep it going.
And
You all are third place, right? Aren't you the third place team out there? Yeah, and we're the third place team in the West, and we're doing the same thing. We split.
yeah. And to me, it looked kind of funny to me because in the first game, did LeBron even play? Did he play in that first game?
Yeah, he played.
Well, it didn't seem like they really were all that.
He didn't score in the first quarter.
It made me wonder, was there something, was this, was it sitting back on it or?
Well, they had a defensive scheme that didn't fit. They were basically saying that we're going to pack the paint because most all teams are bigger than we are, so we're going to pack the paint, and we believe that we can stop them if we don't let them get a lot of points in the paint, which means their star players couldn't drive But what happened was they did a good job. The Timberwolves did a good job of kicking the ball out to the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And the guys hit the shots, which is not typical of some of them, but they hit the shots, and they end up beating. The defense just wasn't there because of the strategy. But it turned around in the second game.
Yeah.
The defense was there. They switched up a bit, and instead of packing the paint, they said, "Look, y'all just gonna have to. You big guys just gonna have to guard your man." And so when they did that, they held the Timberwolves to 80-some points.
Good.
That is
Teachable.
tremendous.
Yeah, they had to learn something.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, at first I'm like, what in the world are we doing? But quite naturally, I wasn't watching the whole game. I was watching the 12, 13-minute game that they now provide on the little shorts.
I do that too. Do you know who the best defensive player was on the floor? I'll give you a clue. He's 40 years old.
Couldn't have been LeBron.
Oh, man. Yep. It was LeBron. Best defensive player on the floor. Both teams.
Cool deal. What you going to say, Elder?
No, I wasn't gonna say anything. That's good.
It's a no comment moment for him.
Well,
We
they
just
doing
had
well.
we had two good games, two close games. I think the matchups are, a lot of times it's matchups. It's not just where you are in the thing.
Yeah.
It's the matchup.
So one thing I observed in your first game, Karl Anthony Towns was not himself. That's not him. That first game, that's not him. Because when he wants to be unstoppable, he can be unstoppable. I don't care what kind of defense you use. The guy's just big and got guard abilities, But that second game, you saw a different guy. Yeah, so.
Yeah, but they lost the second game.
I'm sorry. The first game, the highlights that I was looking at was, I think the game
Second
that
game.
you all lost.
Yeah.
The game that you
But
all
it was
lost.
still a
was
close
not.
game. It was like 6 points, you know what I'm saying? So all the way through. So they're a good defensive team. So we have to, and the matchup is kind of close.
Yeah, but I don't think they got anybody that can can handle Towns. when
Yeah, I
he's-
don't think they can
when-
beat us in the
when
7-game
Yeah.
thing. But anyway,
And the problem with the Lakers, you know, Luka still played good in the game we lost. It's just that the other team got wide open for 3-point shots. So at this point, who do you think is going to win the whole thing?
Oh, Lakers.
I'm not sure it's going to be Boston. A lot of people are sold on Boston.
Yeah, Boston tough.
I'm not sure it's going to be Boston.
Boston is tough to, it's something to deal
it
with.
could be OKC.
Yeah, that's. Now they really think the Lakers match up good with OKC. You know, like you say, it's a matchup thing. Now, why? OKC is obviously the better team, but for some reason, the Lakers seem to match up with them as good as anybody in the West. But we'll see. How much energy will LeBron have left if he get to the Western Conference Finals against OKC? How much will he have left in the tank? You know,
We will see.
the Warriors, are they going to beat the Rockets?
They can.
What do you think? Do you think they will?
I think no. Well, now I don't know because Jimmy Butler got hurt, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's still saying that he's going to play, right?
Yeah, well, I think that will make a difference.
Oh, yeah. Well,
What kind of
he
injury
won't
do
be
he have?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
And that makes a world of difference.
Oh,
Well-
yeah, because he's the one that turned the team around, really, him
Yeah.
coming there.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's talk about just self-care and what men can do to just be able to take care of themselves. Because I've been talking to a lot of brothers here lately. And I was listening to a brother, and we were just talking. He's a deacon at somebody else's church, and he was just telling me how things at his job, the stress and pressure that's on his job, and the situation that was going on it, how he was just really angry, and how even with that, he was upset with things going on in his church. And as I'm talking to him, I mean, he's just going on and on and on, big line of complaints. And I asked him, I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, when the last time you did something you enjoyed? And he sat back, and when he looked back and he thought about it, he couldn't think of too many things that he had done that he did enjoy. Then we went and we talked about what he enjoyed, and he listed some things, which are things that most of the time you can see men enjoying, without giving out too much. You know, enjoy playing basketball, pool, different little stuff, but not doing any of it. And so sometimes we as men, depending on what we got going on, we will ignore having fun. And I think fun has its place in life. You know, a lot of times we don't preach about fun, but doing some things that you enjoy do count. And so what can men do to do things to help preserve their mental health, preserve how, you know, something that just bring back life into them and reinvigorate men? What are some of the thoughts y'all have about that?
Well, you know, the mind is so powerful. Your mind is so powerful. You can be doing very, very well, but you can sit down and think of something that back in your past that happened to you that really bothered you, and it can bring you down. That's what the mind can do for you. It can go find something to bring you down. I don't care how high you get, your mind can find something to bring you down. And it works both ways. No matter how low you get, your mind is powerful enough to put you in a higher place. So I think what happens, in particularly with men, because women tend to have an outlet for a lot of things, you know, stress. And I'm not gonna try to give you any details on what a woman's outlet is, but
You know, something about shopping.
yeah, I'm just gonna not touch it.
Yeah,
But
get
for
in
men,
trouble.
we tend not to have a lot of outlets, even though we got things we like, we don't tend to use those things to get us out of dark places, you know. Like you said, shopping. I'm gonna put that on you. You done brought it up. You know, a woman can be in a dark place. You give her a couple $1,000s and let her go shopping. She come right up out of it.
What they call it, retail therapy.
Yeah, okay. But men don't tend to do that. They tend to dwell on it until they resolve it. They have to have some kind of resolution where they can say, "I conquered this," you know. So therefore, for men, and for me, I can speak for myself. Transcending my meditation, what I think on, you know, and there's scripture that says, "Think on these things."
Yeah, that's
you know.
right.
So, but all men are not spiritual, but I think the principle still works. You got to find things to think on that lift you up. Sometimes maybe a good basketball game. If you like basketball, a good basketball game, not necessarily one that you play in, but maybe one that you watch. You know, go back and pull up some of those old Russell versus Chamberlain basketball.
Yeah.
You know, if you can see it real good. You know? But we don't got so used to high definition. I look back now, I enjoyed those games when they were on, you know, live. But I look back now and I can't even hardly determine what's going on the floor. But that's my response. You know, your mind is the key. Get your mind in the right place, and your whole emotions and everything will follow.
What you said to that, Elder?
Well, I think what I find with a lot of brothers is like they get caught up in work. And there's nothing wrong with work, but you got to make yourself take a break. You know what I'm saying? You can be caught up in it. And I think that and even in the church, you can be caught up in doing things. You know what I'm saying? And then you're just so into that and you don't take a break. And I think that's the lesson of creation. You know, God said the seventh day he rested.
Yeah.
I think you have to rest. And I have worked 7 days in a row. I've done that on a job, you know what I'm saying? And you find that you are burnt out if you don't have a break. So I think that's true in general. Not so much the seventh day, but just in general, you have to take a break and do something or do nothing. Sometimes doing
I
nothing.
like doing nothing. I like doing nothing.
Yeah, sometimes, do nothing,
Getting good at it.
watch a movie or do something else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's different from what you are, what's the word I'm looking for? What you are responsible for. You know what I'm saying? So your mind can rest. And you said it, you just said something very powerful, Pastor Lawson. The mind is powerful. And sometimes we just need to let it rest.
I know my mom said this to me years ago. One time, I think I told her, she called me by my nickname. She said, "Man, what you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just sitting around doing nothing." She said, "No, you're resting. Resting is actually doing something." And when she said that, in that term, I could see how she meant it. It's still, Jesus will pull back and go up into the mountaintop. Of, he'd be praying, but he would get away from everything for a while, just to restore and recalibrate and different things. So, I found a lot of times that works for me. Now, me and my wife, we went into, I hate to tell, so that First Lady Lawson would know, we went deep in the woods on Monday. And we had our ball just going through the woods and went a place, and a wooded area we generally would go, but we found a trail that took us way out and far beyond. And when we got finished, we were talking, it was about 2 hours. It was a long walk, and we were both exhausted and hungry. but it kind of helped me just balance myself a little bit because I actually had scheduled a work day, and by Saturday I called him and said, I ain't doing nothing. I'm not going to do anything with y'all, but we just to sit down and Crystal and I to talk about some things that was coming up and things we need to do. Really became very helpful, and I think sometimes it's really good, like Elder was saying, just not having to be responsible for something. Sometimes it's a blessing. Just saying, you know what, let somebody else do it.
So lazy people really live the life then, right?
Oh, they live. Hey, I don't know if you ever seen some.
But see, now I gotta kick back to what he said about rest. It's not really so much being lazy. I think it's a break. And I want to say something else that might, that's good too. On that same frame is talking to someone else and dealing with them like, it's interesting when Jesus says, when I was sick, you didn't come to see me or you came to see me.
Yeah.
I think when you check in on other folks, then you're no longer concentrating on yourself
Yeah.
and what you got to do, and you're dealing with
I
them.
like that.
I
like
think
that.
that's kind of a change too. That's good. It's interesting because I called a couple of older brothers that I know that I checked in on them yesterday, and it was just a time. It was like a hour. I was just sitting, and waiting for something to happen. I said, let me call the brothers and see how they doing and check in on them, and we had good conversations. And then I was off of the work thing that I was doing. You see what I'm saying? So, I think things like that kind of come into play too.
Yeah, I think for many men, the resolution kind of principle sometimes help them out. Like if you are preoccupied with your work, sometimes just sitting down and looking at what's in front of you and saying, you know what, if I get this one right here done and completed, then I can just walk away for a while. Sometimes that worked better for men rather than just cutting loose and dropping everything. Because now they feel like, you know what, I'm walking away, but at least I got that. And the same thing, going visiting people and adding something, enriching other people's lives. There's resolution there because you say to yourself, okay, I didn't get this done, but look what I did for this person. So you sort of rationalize or justify your pulling away. And especially if the source of your depression, because let's face it, there are some people that can be enriched just staying with their job, just doing what they do.
Yeah.
Keeps them, but when you do pull away, sometimes you need some kind of justification or resolution for it.
I've heard writers say things like that. You're trying to figure something out and saying they just had to get up
Yeah.
and leave it alone for a while. Then you come back to it. I would imagine you do that when you study.
Yeah.
You're studying for the test and you're studying and let me stop for a while. You can go do something else.
I remember
Then
them
you come
days.
back, it's,
Yeah.
I remember those days. Yeah.
So, yeah, so the rest is, I think the bottom line is rest. Rest is good. I'm glad you brought that up, Pastor Ford. That's good.
It's so important that we do rest. A lot of times, and then also not feel guilty about resting. People will try to guilt trip you into something. Like even in ministry, we have to be careful those that are in pastoral and elderships that are over certain connections that people have. Trying to make sure that you have a balanced, and because let me say this, some people will let you work yourself to pieces and not really be thinking, is this really healthy that you are, you got to be the first one to do something early in the morning in the church and go all the way and do about 10 things. Even I was talking to my son, one of the things that happened in the pandemic was that we were doing a lot together in the ministry because we in the same house. And so, if one of us got sick, the other one probably would get sick. Or if we really needed a break and we were doing virtual, sometimes we took a vacation. I called Elder, I said, look, Elder, can you just teach? The elder is not like a 2-point player. Elder can preach, teach, sing. I like, look, can you just carry the whole thing? I think I'm going to take my family to the beach. Elder go up there and he sing, he talk. Anyway, on that note, we will be back after this sponsorship break with Real Talk for Real Men 107.5.
Hello, my name is Daniel out of Greenville. Thank you for listening to Awesome Radio 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU.
Here's a minute to inspire fresh hope in your busy day.
Do you know anyone whose heart is completely pure? Even young children are self-seeking and self-centered from the time they are born. But the good news is that God said, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. You are like someone whose heart is failing and is in desperate need of a heart transplant. In a spiritual sense, God takes your diseased heart and replaces it with a new one that's capable of perfect love. King David said, create a clean heart for me, God. Put a new, faithful spirit deep inside me. Once God has changed your heart, you have a changed life. You can love the unlovable, be kind to the unkind, and forgive the unforgivable. All this because you have a new heart, God's heart.
This Hope Minute was brought to you by Hope for the Heart. To learn more, go to hopeminute.org.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
Well, we're back on the Awesome Radio Network 107.5 AM. We're Real Talk for Real Men, and we're talking about just issues that pertain to men. But at this moment, we're talking about depression and rest and restoration. But there was times I had to hand over to Elder to do some things, and now that I'm trying to build some other things, some different dimensions in my life, I could rely on having. It's good having partners in ministry, people that serve in the ministry, in the house, that can take over the preaching assignment sometimes. I literally looked, and the Lord had, I was just talking with the Lord about some things, and I think maybe it was the month of March. I didn't have to do a whole lot. There's some other parts of ministry I could do. I could sit there and just kind of do the prayer part and have different ministers to step up, and they did some of the teaching and preaching. And I was able to eat and not feeling like you got to always be responsible in a particular area. Quite naturally, when you pastor, you pastor. But that key component of preaching and having some people that you really do trust, and then you know that they can hear the voice of God, letting them feed was something phenomenal for me. Very phenomenal. And so,
Let me tell you what I believe is the ultimate rest.
come on.
Or what you just said made me think of this. But you spoke earlier about God rested on the seventh day. He didn't rest because he was tired.
Nope.
He didn't rest because he needed to get away.
No.
He didn't rest because that creation was getting to him. He rested because what he did was good and it was eternal. In other words, God put in place in the creation a perpetual work where he could rest and the work goes on.
Yeah.
That's what you were talking about when you said you have a minister that when you go away, you don't have to go away worrying about what's going on.
Right.
Because you got something that's been put in place to take care of that. So when we talk about God resting on the Sabbath day, I think what God wants us to understand is the rest that he did is the rest that he wants us to buy into. And that is understanding that there is a complete work in God, that if you will comply with it, align yourself with it, sow the seeds, okay? And you can walk away. The seed's going to take care of it. The seed is going to do what it needs to do if you sow it. So organization becomes a good thing when it comes to rest. People who are very organized can walk away and not be agitated thinking, oh, I need to be there, I need to be there. Well, anytime you got somebody that thinks, I got to be there, they're not very organized.
Well, that's true. And what you said, I believe there's a whole bunch of lessons in that.
Oh, yeah.
7
it's-
days,
it can go.
that rest,
Yeah, really
you know,
is.
because it's also an example for us. But you said something just now, and that's kind of like, if you're a manager, and you're doing all the work, you're not managing.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
you know something's not right with that, and I think Jesus shows us that. Okay, he started with 12. He picked 12, and he was building something.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not going to have to. I need to teach these guys so that when I leave, they can keep doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And he had a group of 12, but he also had others. And everybody's learning how to do it. Okay, they're watching him do it. And that was one of the things I've always said, that Jesus could have came and died and left. You know what I'm saying, in the work, but there was more to it than that. And I think with the Gospels, we see that he was showing us the way, showing us how to live it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's important, because he was showing us how to live it and showing how to lead. You know what I'm saying? I looked at this one time and I was thinking about business, and I thought about it in the sense that the ultimate business model is Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
He built it and he brought people in to do. You know what I'm saying? And they were there were different levels there. You know what I'm saying? He had his 3, then he had the rest. So, you know, we can get a lot out of that if you actually really look at it. And you know, and the other thing, one other thing, well, I was thinking about this, and I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to stray from that, but after the resurrection, when the guys went fishing, Jesus did not.
He didn't.
He didn't get on them about that. I hear people preach it like that sometimes, and I'm kind of like, Jesus didn't say all that. What you're saying, you know, they went back and Jesus, as a matter of fact, he came out there, cooked them breakfast, and helped them get more fish.
Yeah.
So, you know, the guys took a break. I don't know. That's just my
And to feed off, to move on from that, even when he did ascend, there were 10 days left before the Holy Ghost was coming, and he told them, don't do nothing until the Holy Ghost comes. In other words, he had done what he needed to do in them. So now the next step is the Holy Ghost. Don't try to make stuff up, you know, take the steps. And a lot of times we be making stuff up between steps instead of trusting the process. You know, if there's a good process in place, you should be able to trust the process and not be bogged down with mundane kind of activities.
Well, see, and that's a point that I've always thought about, with the abundance of fish supported the ministry.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to do anything, because you know they didn't eat all the fish.
No.
Okay. But they had fish, and they had, apparently, I believe, now I know I'm putting that in it, but I believe they sold some and they had what they needed.
I also
it was a supporting the ministry type thing.
Yeah, and to your point, when they called those other boats, because they had so much in their net, they called those other boats over, you know, to help. I don't think those other boats came in there and got fish out of their net for free. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't work out an arrangement. listen, we got more than we need over here. As a matter of fact, it's about to sink our ship. So, you know, you want to, instead of going out there fishing for your game, you can get them right out of our net. And this is what you need to pass on to us.
And that 10 days, you know, they had what they needed.
Yeah.
You know?
And
So I
they
think
tried
it
to
was-
do something. They tried to do something, but it didn't work. Matthias, you know, that whole Matthias thing,
Nah.
it didn't work.
But you know, God let them do it.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can try it, but I'm gonna show you what I'm really doing.
Right.
You know,
There was a reason I tell you
but-
to wait.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing that a lot of I hear ministries, and it's almost like a lot of folks don't want you to think. God is okay if you think. If you get it wrong, He knows how to work it. It'll come back into focus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, so they threw the dice and they picked Matthias, and you know, I know it's the Udom, but it's essentially the dice.
Yeah. Who knows
They rolled
what?
it,
Who
you
knows
know.
what that promotion may have still blessed Matthias in some way.
Right.
Just
and
because
may have
he did-
blessed the church in some way.
Yeah, but he didn't rise to the level of the Apostle Paul, who, you know, we consider to be that replacement for Judas in a sense. But still, you know, I'm sure God got his, you know, it worked out for.
He was
for
part
good.
of the company anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
but listen, we're about to go to another break here. You're listening to Real Talk for Real Men here on Awesome Radio. Awesome Radio, Real Talk for Real Men. We are 107.5 FM and 1570 AM. And we're glad that you have tuned in. And we're going to go to a break right now, but we'll be right back for our last session. We'll see you in just a little while.
I am Miss Mary Cox. I'm Killer Thigpen's mother from Awesome Radio.
The prayer line is open. 877-6-PRAY NOW. That's 877-6772-9669. A Touch of God's Presence Ministries. 1300 Dickinson Avenue, Greenville, North Carolina.
Be sure to read the fine print in your music license for any ministry. Stay tuned.
Church ministry today. It's filled with legal pitfalls. Helping you avoid one of them, here's attorney Dave of the Christian Law Association.
Margaret was an honest person who helped organize the music for her church. For years, the church had paid an organization for a license that allowed the church and the ministry to use copyrighted songs. Suddenly, Margaret learned that this music license did cover the church's use of music for congregational singing, but it did not cover using copyrighted material when an ensemble presented a musical selection during the service. This is not uncommon. Let me repeat. They could use it for congregational singing, but not when a music group was going to use the same material for some type of a musical selection. If you have any music license, read the details carefully. By all means, never assume you have permission to do anything you wish to do with a copyrighted song. If you have a copyright question, please call us at the Christian Law Association.
Call 888-252-1969. That's 888-252-1969. Or if you prefer, 888-CLA-1969.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
All right, we're WECU, Awesome Radio Network on your radio dial. I am Pastor Trey Forbes, and we're talking on some things that are valuable to men. Real talk for real men. What are some things that we can do as men to just battle battle back depression. Well, as a spiritual male, I go ahead. We can reading our Bible and praying as well. Fellowshipping with other brothers. And I like how Elder Nat had said about being able to call brothers and check up on them, because sometimes it's encouraging that you call somebody that might have been going through, and yet both of y'all together might help lift your spirit. I found that so true and indicative of things I've been going through. I want to read something. Let's talk about male depression. Is often is not diagnosed. Men with depression often aren't diagnosed for several reasons, including not recognizing depression. You may think that feeling sad or emotional is always the main symptom of depression, but for many men, that isn't the main symptom. For example, headaches, digestive problems, tiredness, irritability for long-term pain sometimes can be symptoms of depression. So can feeling isolated and seeking distractions so that you don't have to deal with feelings or relationships. Downplaying symptoms. You may not know how much your symptoms affect you, or you may not want to admit to yourself or anyone else that you're depressed. And so sometimes you can ignore and try to cover up how you feel. Another one, they said not wanting to talk about depression symptoms and not wanting to get mental health treatment. Sometimes I looked at it some ways that people have been treated as actually been medicine. And I've seen a lot of people that benefited from being on medicine, and nothing's wrong with you being a spiritual being. And if something is wrong with how your brain is working, some imbalances of chemicals that are imbalanced in your brain, to take the medicine for it. You would not leave your diabetes unchecked, hopefully. You wouldn't leave other illnesses or ailments unchecked. So why not, if helping you taking your medicine help you regulate how you're thinking and feeling and mood, even if it's for a short while, why not take your medicine?
I think one of the important things is fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times men, brothers, I guess, from my experience, we grow up and we're always being told to be tough.
Yeah.
Handle your business, you take care, you know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times we don't have someone that we trust that we can share with.
It's true.
And let that stuff out. You know what I'm saying? We carry it. And I think that's an important something to have, is that, and I don't mean everybody, because you can't tell stuff to everybody.
Right.
But you need to have somebody in your life that you can share with, that's not going to judge you, that can help you,
Mm-hmm.
Talk through it. Because sometimes it's just, and you being in the field, you understand that, just like the psychologist, I seen the picture of the psychologist and the guys on the couch, and the psychologist is doodling. But his whole thing is, you the one need to talk.
Right.
You don't need to talk, and you'd be surprised. You talking it out, you're hearing yourself.
Yeah.
And so it helps, but you need somebody. And it could be somebody, a professional,
Yeah.
but you need somebody in your life that you could share with. And brothers have a problem sometimes sharing deep stuff. I don't know. That's just my thought.
And it's true, because I was sitting there, I was talking to a young lady who was going through a divorce. And she was talking about one of her sons. She was saying that she's getting therapy, and the younger son is getting therapy. The oldest son was like, no, I don't want to go talk about my feelings to nobody about how I feel about this and that. But some of the anger that he had and she was sharing, I said, yeah, he might do need to talk to somebody, even if it's somebody in the church or somebody that he somewhat trusts or somebody, if nothing else. Because a lot of times in therapy, a lot of therapists, they actually rely on you solving your own problem. And they do different things that they might see, oh, this is really your problem. And just wanting to guide you into seeing, wait a minute, like, seem like every Friday night and Saturday night, me and my spouse fight. We fight, and then you're like, well, what's making you fight? I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with them. We'll go have some drinks with some friends, some man might come up to speak, and he gets real jealous, and on and on. And then they start not really looking. Then they say, well, how was this week? I don't know. Like I told you before, it's that Friday night. And then they start talking, and you might find out some of the things that you're doing to call yourself relaxing might be the thing that's contributing to what's going on in your relationship that's going, making it go haywire, whether you one of you feel jealous or whatever. But after just keep hearing the same repeated pattern, you start to be able to figure out what's going on, and maybe it's something that you might have to switch up. So a lot of times that's even pastors, we want to hear you talk, and sometimes it's almost like a good spiritual animal. I hate to probably put it in that way, but sometimes we just backload it full of stuff that we need to get out of our system, a lot of pain, and you could be feeling a particular way. But sometimes just the fact of knowing somebody heard you helps out.
Yeah, I tend to like the natural therapeutic experiences. I like the psychologist versus the psychiatrist. One of them just use basic therapy. The other one use medical treatment. If a person got that kind of problem, medical treatment sometimes covers stuff when you're not really getting a super resolution or a real resolution. Whereas the other doesn't use any kind of medicine. But I think one of the reasons so many people go on vacations and you see people do these extreme things like skydiving and getting on those
the
gliders, hang gliding, and mountain climbing, because that tends to be therapy for them. We look at it and say, "Oh man, that's terribly dangerous," but for them, it's therapy. Even some young women will go try to climb a mountain all by themselves.
It kind of can be a little bit of both, though, dangerous and.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, if untreated mental issues can be dangerous, even if you don't go on a mountain. Yeah. So I guess if you balance the two off, you may say, you know what, let her go on out there.
Good luck, babe. Good luck. I tell you, and it's funny because, and I know I've discussed this on a previous show. One of the things that shocked me, I don't remember. I think it might have been when we went to Florida one year. We went there. Number one, when we went out there, this guy had a baby alligator in his hand, and it was it was just as wide as my shoulders. And he's walking around with this thing, and the first person he handed to is Crystal, and I know she's scared of snakes. And I'm thinking to myself, now you got a whole alligator in your hand. And I know that maybe people look at the venom, and that's a 50-50 chance. It might be a constrictor, but she sat there and held it. Now, quite naturally, they had some tape around his mouth. They didn't let that mouth just go free, but she held that. Then what shocked me, we went into the building, and I noticed she watched American Ninja Warrior sometime, but she got up there and just climbed way up on top of the thing. She was walking across and all that stuff. Then she climbed up the little rock crawling thingamabob to ring the bell way up, maybe 20, 30 feet. And I'm just sitting there like, like Oprah did. No, not on Oprah, but like they did on Color Purple. Harpo, who's this woman? because I didn't know. I was like, where's all this coming from? But she was that adventure, it helped her dial back and
Adventure,
reset
yeah.
and get her where she needed to be. So I do. agree with
Adventure
you.
is
So,
good therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes for us taking them long walks, that does the trick for me.
When we were being raised, very, very poor families, and all of our neighbors were poor, and everybody in the neighborhood was poor. We used to go back in the woods. We stayed right near the river, close to the woods. We'd go back in the woods, and we'd forget how poor we were. We'd be back there barefooted, didn't have no shoes during the summer. Moms don't buy shoes in the summer.
Yeah.
You ain't going to school, what need to buy your
always.
shoes for.
Yeah.
So we all back there barefooted, running through the dirt paths in the woods, and we forget, that we didn't have no bicycle, no toys, or it was just great, being out there in a whole different element,
Yeah.
And we took pride in the fact that, hey, we left the neighborhood and we way back here, and sometimes we'd be so far away that we'd have to figure our way back home,
I remember being out in the country in Grifton when I went down to stay with my grandparents. Somebody had a large tub in the yard, just out in the yard. I don't know what, how that ended up. But all the kids got into it and we pretend like we were in a boat, canoeing and all
Using
that.
that
Yeah, we
imagination.
just all types of adventures in our mind. So
Well, it helped creativity.
yeah.
It helped creativity. I think when we were younger, there wasn't games, and you didn't have the computers, so you could be creative.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not criticizing those things. I'm just saying it was a different time, and so you had positive things to come out of that. I used to come down here in the summer on the farm, and you worked, but when you wasn't working, you had to be creative in what you did, to have fun and do. And my thing was me and my cousin, we laugh at it now. You taste granddaddy had hogs, and he had some in the pen, but he had some in the field where they made it. You know what I'm saying? And did all that. And them big sows, and we go in to climb the fence and grab the little piglets.
Yeah.
And let them start squealing, and here come
Take
the
off.
big sow. And we got to run.
I did
It was
too.
little fun stuff just, on the farm, man. So,
We used to do it. We used to get the little dirt, but I can't. Well, kind of they weren't rocks, but I can't even think of it. But you just take a cluster and just hit the pigs, and which what? Don't nobody call me from Peter. But then we did the same thing. We grabbed a little pig, take off running, and the sow take off, squealing. And we drop it, jump over the fence or something. We had a lot of fun with that.
Well, if you were in the holiness church, they tell you to get all that stuff off your mind. You need to get lost in Jesus. You want some adventure? Get in your Bible.
Somebody there. I got some fun for you.
but you know something? It's fascinating that you said that.
I'm just thinking about it.
No. That's cool because I was listening to the radio the other day, and sometimes I'll be listening to the news, and sometimes something will come on that people are talking about their upbringing. They're kind of, I don't know if it was StoryCorps or something. The guy was talking, and he was saying he grew up in that not what you call it, in the type of church that was real strict. Yeah, and he was like, and he was talking about his experience of he said when he was young he couldn't even look at a woman, because he was worried about, he said he almost all he could look at is a head. It's like a floating head, because he didn't want to look at a body because they had the way they taught them. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people have come up with some strange, and he said even up until he was about 22, you know what I'm saying? He had to, and until he talked to somebody and that kind of took him out of that. But the way that they taught things You know, the way they teach things in certain places really binds people up. You know what I'm saying? And he was really caught up in that. And I was just listening to it, and I said, okay, I could see that, you know.
The holiness people had an answer. You know, they
sure
tell the
did.
women, you know, the women from their neck all the way down, the only thing you could see was their face and their hands. They would, the way they dress,
Praise
the way they
God.
dress. So you can look at it as long as you want to, because there wasn't nothing to see. From her neck, I mean, tight neck. You couldn't even show this bottom part of it.
Show that water.
From there all the way down to the ground, there was nothing to see. And it was
Holiness still
baggy.
right.
And so, you know, the holiness people,
And that's
they had,
like
they
other-
had that thing organized.
Well, other religions do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a form of bondage, but you know, that's
yeah.
another story.
Oh yeah, it's a
Yeah.
form of bondage.
Yeah, you think about it. I know some people, and they really did believe, hey, look, you can't go to a movie theater. I know people modern. Don't go to a movie theater. You on the devil's territory. You want to see a movie. Wait till it come out on VCR. You watch it at home. Don't go here. Do not. You know.
They're not gonna let you be lost,
No.
even if you want to be.
Yeah.
And the devil's music.
You can't backslide
Yeah,
if
listen
you
to
want.
that devil's
Listen to that
music.
devil's music.
Oh, some of them still got that. You know,
Yeah.
devil's music.
Now look, I'm gonna be honest. I do hold to some stuff of the devil's music, and I'm gonna tell you why I said that all the hardcore raunchy cursing that's in some music now. That back in y'all day, the only person you might have had was Millie Jackson that would throw something out there crazy.
Well, I don't know. Do the devil really have any music?
Well,
Nah, that's
well,
another question there. I don't know if there's any sinful B flats.
See.
well, I
you
ain't
know,
talking about the notes.
Well, I'm talking about music.
Y'all always wait till we get to the last 2 minutes.
Look, ready to
And you come up with
set
the
the
good
world on
topics.
fire. Now everybody want to set the world on fire.
Now you come up with the good topic. Is
Well, look,
there
look,
anything as devil music?
There's some hard cussing and hard beats, and it get your mind jacked, just thrown off.
I think the music itself is the music. What you put in the lyrics,
Yeah, I get what
lyrics
you're
is a
saying.
whole
Yeah,
other ballgame.
words have power.
Yeah.
Music is music.
Yeah.
A B flat is a B flat in gospel music.
Right.
It's the same
We
B
really
flat.
talking about the lyrics, though, y'all.
Okay.
That's what we.
I'm just checking.
Yeah. The devil lyrics, then.
Okay.
You gonna make me have to preach that Sunday? Y'all be here and listen to the devil's lyrics.
But that's true. That's
Well,
true.
if there's no such thing as devil music, is there any such thing as a television?
Oh, I've heard that.
You remember the
preached.
television?
Yeah, Helavision and Helaphone
I
too.
heard that.
Yeah, television and telephone.
Y'all
That's
been on
right.
that? I remember one time I had somebody tell me that. A minister said it to me when I was real young. Said, "You be out there on that helaphone,
Ain't nothing but the devil.
full of the devil."
Especially if you're up there more than 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Once you pass 30 seconds, that wasn't a phone call. Y'all talking about people.
yeah.
Y'all gossiping.
Yeah.
There might be some of that going on, though. I think there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Some folk need to get off the phone.
Yeah.
But I never been mad with the Holiness Church, because they cause people to do things that it was deceptive, because it made people feel like, if you cover it up, or if you put yourself in a discipline where you can't do nothing wrong, then you have a relationship with the Lord. The truth of the matter is, God wants you to be tempted sometimes. He wants you to be.
You
in
can't
places
do
where
that
you
type
be
of stuff,
tested.
and we get ready to go right off the show.
Yeah, I know. Y'all started it.
You can't do. We only got 30. You
No, I
done
started.
messed up somebody's theology real bad.
Yeah, you the one you're talking about that psychology
How
stuff.
we gonna see?
and that-
How we
now
gonna
you-
see you had any growth if you don't sometimes be put in a situation where you got to tell yourself now?
Well, Joseph, the Lord put him in a situation.
God
with
knows he
Potiphar's
did.
wife.
Yeah,
You
he,
know,
he was a young man too. He didn't wait till he was about 97.
Yeah.
And some 97-year-olds would do something too. Like, hold on. Let me get my pill. All right. So anyway,
And we're gonna close on that.
Yeah, we'll close on that. Well, you're listening to Real Talk for Real Men, and we love you. And we'll see you next week. Awesome Radio.